Hello friends, my name is Kathy and I would like to welcome you to my channel. I wanted to stop by today and kind of introduce myself and talk about my journey. Particularly, the name of my channel is Kathy Sepamaki, Finding Myself at Midlife. And really a big part of that was discovering that I am both autistic and have ADHD. So I am AuDHD. And I realized after discovering that how little I knew about who I really am because of just the years of masking and people pleasing and all of that. So I really wanted to just kind of stop by and give you my story. So I have struggled a lot in my life, like so many people who are neurodivergent, and didn't understand why. I think there are a lot of us who struggle with things like executive dysfunction. And for me, I have really done a good job at covering and masking my whole life until 2024. In 2024, my world, and it really kind of started in 2023, but my world fell apart. I ended up struggling so much with executive dysfunction that I couldn't function. It was hard for me to work. It was really a struggle to get either off the couch or out of the bed. And as a result, I ended up losing my home in 2024. And it was not because I didn't want to work. Those people who know me will tell you that I have always been a really, really hard worker. And so I struggled with a lot of the guilt and the shame that comes with being in a place of executive dysfunction and not understanding why that's happening. So fast forward to January of 2025. I was scrolling YouTube and came across a short from a podcast that I sometimes listen to, and they were interviewing a woman who was in her late 40s, and she was talking about being diagnosed, and it was a late diagnosis with ADHD. And she was explaining that she got a diagnosis because she brought her child in to get diagnosed. And as they were going through that process, the therapist looked at her and said, well, you do know that you pretty much have most likely have ADHD too. She was kind of blindsided by that because she certainly hadn't been diagnosed in her life. And so she was talking about the things that she had experienced as a result of that. And I resonated with a lot of that. And so, the first thing I did was I went and watched the full podcast, and there were so many of the things that she had been dealing with in her life because of her ADHD that hadn't been, recognized, and her life made a whole lot more sense. And so I went down the rabbit hole. I started studying, and learning all about ADHD, and that did answer a lot of questions, but not all questions. You see, I have always walked around with this feeling that my brain, I'm just like a walking contradiction, that there are two sides of my brain. And the more research I did on the ADHD, I was looking for that missing link, so to speak. In my research, autism kept coming up, and this term AuDHD, and I kind of brushed it aside because there was no way in the world I would ever have thought that I was autistic. And I certainly was not in a place where I wanted to accept that possibility in my life. And so, I kept doing the research, and eventually, a few weeks later, I kind of started looking at things and thinking, well, maybe. And so I started looking at autism. And once again, there were a lot of things that really resonated with me with the autism. And it kind of explained that missing piece. Now, I don't have a formal diagnosis. Unfortunately, it is cost prohibitive for me. But there are some really great online resources. There are some testing things like the RADS and the cat Q, and different things that you can take that can give you an idea if you really should consider going and getting a formal diagnosis. When I'm in a place financially that I can do that, I absolutely will do that, but I'm not at that place right now. I mean, I just lost my house last year. I'm in the process of really trying to rebuild my life, and a big part of that is figuring out who I am and getting past all of the masking and all of the people pleasing, and just learning more about who I am and what I need in my life. So when I did start learning about the autism part of that, I really did not want to embrace that possibility. That was really a struggle for me, even though it made sense. And it took me a while to really accept that I could be autistic and have ADHD. And so I did eventually come across the RADS test online and some of those other tests that are used to help people distinguish if maybe they should go for more in-depth testing. I took those tests so many times over the course of several weeks, and I mean, I just still take them regularly, and it absolutely said that indeed that I do have ADHD and I am autistic. And so I started learning more about AuDHD, which is autism and ADHD combined, and it was such an aha moment for me. And at the same time, it just answered so many questions that had been happening in my life that I didn't have answers for. And I looked back on my life and I could see how both of those had impacted me so strongly. And once I really embraced that possibility for myself, it brought a sense of relief, but after that, it also brought a sense of grief, because I didn't discover this until I was 55 years old. And I look back at my life and I wonder what my life could have been like if I had known earlier, because it explained so many of the struggles that I had had in my life. And I think that creating the blog and really starting to write more about my experience with ADHD and creating more content and creating videos has really been a journey for me, because the more I research and the more I start learning about different aspects of the ADHD experience, at least for me, the more I understand myself more, and the more I'm really wanting to know what is really going to work for me. And it's about truly recreating my life. I think one of the biggest struggles and what makes it a disability for so many of us is that the world has a very narrow view of who we are supposed to be as people and how we're supposed to maneuver in the world and make money in the world and all of that. And so many of those things just don't work for those people who have ADHD and who are autistic, and the combination. And so it's about relearning life and figuring out what works for me, so that I can get out of survival mode and get to a place where I am thriving instead. And it's about, I mean, I've learned things that are as simple as, why meditation doesn't always work for me, because I cannot sit still. Trying to be still and quiet my mind does not work. And so I've been learning different ways of doing things. I've been learning all of these things that I've tried to force myself to do over the years that are just creating more stress in my life and that don't align with who I really am. And so I'm really searching, for all of those answers in my life to make my life so much better than what it is. And I've uncovered a lot. I know that living a more simple life is so much better for me, and trying not to be in that hustle and grind all the time. And there are sometimes, I do that. Luckily, some of the work that I do is aligned with one of my hyper focuses, and that is working in the musical theater world. And I do a lot of music directing and all of that. So it's just a process right now for me of finding out what works best for me, and then sharing that with you guys. I know there are a lot of women, particularly, thank you for knocking into my camera, Banks. There are a lot of women in midlife who are blindsided because hormones start changing, and they didn't know that they were neurodivergent, and suddenly life falls apart. And so they're really in a place, hello, sweet girl. They're in a place where they're, they don't know who they are. And I mean, I understand that. So I'm really wanting to share a lot of what I'm uncovering and helping those women who are in midlife to live a better life. And I think that, this is a path that once you have a greater understanding of who you are with ADHD or autism or ADHD, if you just have them, individually, when you have a better understanding of who you are, you're more open to making the changes that will benefit you. Hi, sweet girl. So I'm excited to share more with you guys as I learn, and as I really do better and better and better in my life. And I hope you'll share with me what you've dealt with. And I really hope you'll join me for this journey. All right. Thank you for joining me, friends. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye now.